You're up at the kitchen line. The rally is perfectly controlled.
Right. Just a nice, comfortable dink battle.
Exactly. The ball is just tapping back and forth over the net. It's almost meditative, honestly.
Oh, so
You know exactly what's happening. The geometry is completely horizontal, and everything is just right there at eye level. And then, without any warning at all, your opponent pops the ball up into the sky. They hit a lob.
yeah, the dreaded lob.
Right. And in a fraction of a second, your heart rate spikes, gravity feels like this completely foreign concept, and you are just frantically scrambling backward. I mean, for a lot of players, that single shot doesn't just shatter the rhythm of the rally, it induces pure panic.
It really is the absolute definition of on-court chaos for most players. I mean, the dimensions of the game suddenly shift from this manageable two-dimensional plane into a frantic three-dimensional scramble.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Right, and when that happens, the physical and mental landscape just completely breaks down.
Which is exactly why we are here today. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are pulling apart a highly specific tactical and safety manual for pickleball.
It's a great source.
It really is. And this source material is zeroed in entirely on that exact scenario, defending against the lob and hitting the overhead smash.
Yeah.
So our mission for you listening today is simple, but massive. We want to help you completely eliminate your feel of the lob, protect yourself from some very serious on-court injuries, and ultimately show you how to turn what feels like a desperate, flailing defensive scramble into a synchronized strategic advantage.
Because, while the vast majority of players view a lob over their head as this unpredictable, terrifying emergency, the source material we're looking at reveals something completely different.
Right.
A lob is not an emergency. It is actually just a predictable geometry problem.
I love that.
Yeah, and like any geometry problem, it can be solved, right? With clear rules, precise communication, and proper mechanics.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we even get into the physical footwork, and long before we talk about how you swing the paddle, the text insists we have to fundamentally rewire how you think about the lob.
Absolutely.
Because panic leads to just catastrophic mistakes on the court.
Precisely. I mean, if your brain registers a log as a physical threat, your nervous system reacts with a classic fight-or-flight response.
Oh, for sure.
Your vision narrows, your muscles tense up, and your athletic coordination just completely evaporates.
Yeah.
You stop playing a sport and start, purely reacting out of survival instinct.
Which never goes well. So the text points out something that feels incredibly obvious once you read it, but it gets totally forgotten in the heat of the moment.
Right.
When you and your partner are holding your ground at the kitchen in an evenly matched game, a lob is almost always a defensive shot from your opponents.
That is the crucial reframe right there. When your opponents are backed up or out of position, they aren't usually trying to hit an outright winner by lobbing it over you.
Yeah, they're trapped.
Exactly. They're trapped. They're feeling the intense pressure of your forward positioning, and they are quite literally just trying to escape.
So they just throw it up.
Right. They send the ball high into the air because they desperately need time to recover their own court position.
There is this great mantra in the manual. It says, don't think of a lob as a problem. Think of it as a question.
I love that line.
Me too. I love the psychology of that.
Yeah.
To me, it's like the difference between trying to defuse a live bomb versus taking a pop quiz.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Because a bomb is an emergency where one wrong move blows everything up. But a pop quiz is just a question.
Right.
You might be annoyed that you're being tested, sure, but there is a specific knowable answer. But I have to ask you, if the lob is just a question, where exactly are you supposed to look to find the answer?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because my immediate instinct, the second that ball goes up, is to just stare at the back of the court and try to frantically guess where the shadow of the ball is going to land.
What's fascinating here is that watching where the ball lands is the absolute worst instinct you can have.
Wait, really?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The answer you're looking for isn't on the ground at all. The answer is in the air. Specifically, you need to be reading what the manual calls the apex.
Oh, okay. So the absolute highest point of the ball's arc in the sky.
Yes. The very moment the ball leaves your opponent's paddle, your eyes should stop looking horizontally and start tracking the ball upward to find that peak altitude.
Got it.
The apex is the ultimate decoder ring for this entire situation. The location of that peak in the air dictates every single action that you and your partner take next.
So it's like a trigger for the whole system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tells you who plays the ball, what shot has the highest probability of success, and exactly where your partner needs to move.
Okay, so instead of just guessing based on the trajectory, I'm using the ball's peak altitude as like a hard data point. Let's explore how this decoder ring actually works in practice, because the text divides the airspace into these distinct zones that trigger different responses.
Let's do it.
So if you look up and the apex is peaking right in front of you, meaning it hits its highest point while still hovering over the kitchen, the manual says that is unmistakably your ball. You immediately call mine.
Oh, yeah, Zach.
And your physical response in that zone is all about balance. Because the apex is in front of you, you don't need to scramble.
Right, you're already there.
Exactly. You can take it cleanly out of the air with a soft volley. You can drop it as a bink, or, you can even let it bounce to reset the point.
And what about my partner?
Their partner's role is equally calm. They simply hold their ground at the kitchen and remain in a ready position. There is just no chaotic movement required.
Nice. But the tension ratchets up as that apex drifts further back.
Oh, yeah.
If you track the ball and the peak is directly over your head, it's still your ball. You still yell, mine. But now you have a choice to make based on your comfort level.
You can attack it with an overhead smash if you have the balance, or you can let it bounce. And interestingly, the text emphasizes that while your partner stays at the kitchen, they need to keep their paddle tip down.
Yeah, that paddle tip detail is crucial. If you are hitting an overhead from directly above your own head, there is a much higher risk you might mishit it or, just not hit it cleanly enough.
Because it's an awkward angle.
Right. So your partner keeps their paddle down because they are anticipating a potential rapid counterattack from the opponents. They're basically in a defensive crouch, covering you while you take the swing.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's push the apex even further back, because this is where the geometry starts to really test players.
This is the tricky one.
You track the ball upward, and you realize the peak of the arc is actually about 2 steps behind where you are currently standing.
This is the ultimate transition point in the sequence.
Yeah.
But the initial answer remains identical. This is still your ball to take. You must vocalize mine loudly and early. However, your physical action shifts dramatically here. You can no longer just stand there. You have to execute a quick shoulder turn, moving sideways to get yourself physically under or behind the dropping ball.
Right.
And then, once you've reestablished that position, you execute a controlled overhead or let it bounce.
And what I found so interesting about this specific zone is how heavily it relies on the partner's movement.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, while I am doing that quick turn to chase the ball those 2 steps back, the text says my partner needs to abandon the kitchen and slide back toward the middle of the transition zone.
Yeah, they are acting as a counterbalance to your movement. By dropping into the transition zone, they're protecting the exposed court you just left behind, right?
Oh, I see.
And it sets up a unified defensive wall in case your overhead isn't perfectly lethal.
Which brings us to the final spatial judgment. You look up, and the apex is well behind you. It's sailing deep, peeking way over your shoulder toward the baseline.
This is the moment the script flips entirely.
Oh.
The moment you read that deep apex, you have to accept that it is just no longer your ball. Attempting to force a play on a ball that deep while facing forward is practically impossible.
So my vocal call completely changes then. I'm yelling yours, or switching to my partner, and my primary physical job is literally just getting out of the way.
Yep, get out of there.
I just have to clear the path and cross over to the middle of my partner's side of the transition zone.
Exactly. You are creating an open lane. Your partner is the one who retrieves that deep lob, and because they have a clear runway, their job is to execute a high, deep return.
Basically lobbing the lob back.
Exactly, lobbing it back, or hitting a very controlled drop shot to buy both of you the necessary time to recover your synchronized positioning.
So what does this all mean? Looking at this whole spatial system, it boils down to a very tight sequence. You read the apex, decide whose ball it is, call it out, move safely, and recover together.
That's the formula.
But I have to push back on one element here. This sounds incredibly logical on paper, almost like a choreographed dance. But on an actual court, players just freeze.
Oh, all the time.
Right. So why is the vocal call like shouting mine or yours so heavily emphasized as a required immediate action? Shouldn't my partner just see that the ball is clearly sailing over my head and react?
Well, relying on visual assumptions is exactly how collisions happen, or conversely, how the ball ends up dropping completely untouched between two frozen players.
I've definitely been there.
We all have.
Yeah.
The early verbal communication is the linchpin of the entire system because it is what literally unlocks your partner's ability to move.
So by making the call, I am essentially freeing up my partner's cognitive load.
Exactly. Think about the geometry of that third scenario we discussed, where the apex is 2 steps behind you.
Okay. Yeah.
If you read the ball and definitively call mine, your partner knows instantly, without even looking at you, that their specific job is to shift to the middle of the transition zone to cover the gap.
Yeah.
If you stay silent, your partner is trapped in a mental loop of indecision. Should they cross over and go for it? Should they cover the gap? Should they just stay put?
And by the time they figure it out based purely on watching your body language, it's just too late.
Exactly. The text is adamant communication tells your partner the reality of the situation. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it all loops back to the core mantra. Read the ball, make the call, move safely, recover together.
Wow. So the verbal call is basically the trigger mechanism for the entire team's synchronization.
You've got it.
You are making the decision out loud so the team can function as one cohesive unit rather than two individuals guessing what the other might do.
Precisely.
But, calling mine is just making a decision. You still have to physically get to a ball that is dropping behind you without ending up in the emergency room.
That is the hard part.
And that brings us to what the source material treats as the absolute non-negotiable golden rule of pickleball survival. The ban on backpedaling.
Yes. Listen, if you retain only one piece of information from this deep dive, it has to be this safety protocol.
It's that important.
It really is. The single greatest physical hazard when defending a lob is the natural human instinct to run backward while keeping your chest and face pointed directly at the net.
Just frantically throwing your feet in reverse.
It is incredibly dangerous. The text is unambiguous, never backpedal.
Wow.
When you move backward facing the net, your center of gravity shifts dangerously behind your heels. It creates an astronomically high risk of catching your heel on the court surface, tripping over your own feet, falling directly backward, and sustaining a severe head injury or wrist fracture.
That sounds awful.
It happens so fast, so the golden rule is rigid. Do not move backward while your shoulders are parallel to the net.
But wait, if I'm legally banned from backpedaling, how am I physically supposed to retrieve a ball that is dropping behind my current position?
Well, the mechanical prerequisite for all safe movement on the court is the shoulder turn. Before you allow yourself to take a single step backward, you must turn your shoulders so they were perpendicular to the net.
Okay.
You have to orient your body sideways.
Let's map this back onto the spatial zones we just covered then.
Sure.
If the apex is just a couple of steps behind me, or I've confidently called mine, the text prescribes a movement. It calls the quick turn and shuffle. I'm turning my shoulders sideways, and then I'm shuffling my feet laterally to get under the ball.
The brilliance of the lateral shuffle is that because your shoulders are sideways, your feet are moving side to side rather than front to back.
Right.
So they aren't crossing over each other in a way that tangles your legs, but because your head is turned, your eyes can still continuously track the ball in the air.
But what about that final zone? The lob that is well behind me, sailing deep toward the baseline.
That is where the system utilizes the full sprint. Shuffling sideways is safe, but it is relatively slow. You cannot sideways shuffle for 15 feet and hope to catch a deep lob.
Yeah, you'd never make it.
So you don't even try. You designate that deep ball as yours. It belongs to your partner.
And the reason it belongs to my partner is because they have the physical angle to turn their body completely forward and sprint toward the baseline to chase it down.
Exactly. They aren't moving backward in any capacity. They are sprinting forward toward the back fence, which is the safest and fastest way a human being can run.
That makes total sense.
You should never, under any circumstances, attempt a full-speed backward shuffle. The logic is ironclad. If a ball is too deep to reach with 2 or 3 quick sideways shuffles, it is simply no longer your ball.
Just let it go.
You relinquish it, clear the path, and let your partner sprint forward to get it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I want to highlight something in the text that I found incredibly compelling.
What's that?
Turning your shoulders isn't just about avoiding a hospital visit. It actually cures some of the most terrible swing mechanics amateurs struggle with.
Oh, 100%.
I was thinking about this, and backpedaling while trying to hit an overhead smash. Well, it's basically like trying to parallel park a car while only staring into the rearview mirror.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Right. It's awkward, you have absolutely zero power, you can't see the full picture, and you are almost certainly going to crash.
It's so true. When you backpedal while facing the net, your body weight is entirely falling backward, moving away from the ball.
Yeah.
And because you are falling away, your paddle is usually just flailing directly in front of your face in a desperate attempt to make contact.
The manual literally refers to it as slapping at the ball.
Yes, you slapped at it out of sheer desperation. And because your momentum is carrying you backward, the physical trajectory of your swing inevitably pulls the ball straight down into the net.
Ugh, the worst feeling.
But by forcing yourself to turn your shoulders perpendicular to the net, you instantly solve the mechanical failure. The shoulder turn stops your backward momentum, allows you to get your body behind the ball, and critically permits you to step forward into the swing, transferring your body weight into the shot.
So prioritizing safety naturally breeds excellent technique.
It is a profound two-for-one benefit. The shoulder turn keeps you out of the hospital, and it simultaneously keeps the ball out of the net.
Win-win.
But it demands strict discipline. As the manual outlines, only after your safety is guaranteed through that sideways shoulder turn can you begin the actual mechanical work of hitting the overhead.
So let's transition into that mechanical work. We've read the apex, we've shouted mine, we've safely turned our shoulders and laterally shuffled into the perfect position. We are finally ready to strike.
Here we go.
The text breaks down the mechanics of the overhead smash, and it draws a heavy comparison to a tennis serve, but with one massive, game-changing difference.
This is a vital distinction for anyone bringing tennis habits onto a pickleball court.
Yeah.
In a tennis serve, you toss the ball up into the perfect spatial position for your specific body mechanics. In a pickleball overhead, your opponent has effectively tossed the ball for you, and you must move yourself into the perfect spatial position to meet it.
You don't get to dictate where the ball is. You have to do all the micro adjustments with your feet.
Exactly.
So the manual structures this fluid movement into 4 distinct beats: turn, shuffle, reach, and hit. And reading through it, I noticed they are hyper-focused on where the ball is in relation to your body during that reach phase.
Let's break down why. The first 2 beats are exactly what we discussed. Turn your shoulders perpendicular to the net immediately upon recognizing the lob, and shuffle laterally to get behind the dropping ball.
Right, you never want to be reaching backward for a ball.
Which brings us to the reach. You bring your paddle up into a throwing position, but the text specifies the ball must be slightly in front of your forward shoulder, the shoulder closest to the net.
And it makes a massive point about your non-paddle hand. You were supposed to point it straight up at the ball and leave it there during the reach. Why is there such an intense emphasis on leaving that non-paddle hand pointing at the sky?
This raises an important question about human biomechanics. That non-paddle hand is acting as a multifaceted targeting system.
Oh, interesting.
On a basic level, pointing at the ball forces your eyes to maintain an unbroken visual lock on it. But structurally, keeping that arm elevated keeps your entire body balanced.
How so?
Well, if you drop that non-paddle arm too early in the sequence, your front shoulder inevitably drops with it. When your front shoulder drops, your chest opens up to the sky, your chin comes down, and your center of gravity shifts backward.
Oh, wow. So it's acting like a built-in level for your posture.
Exactly. Keeping that hand pointing upward forces you to maintain that perpendicular sideways stance right up until the point of contact.
It physically prevents you from letting the ball drift behind you.
Right, enforcing the absolute necessity of making contact with the ball high and slightly in front of your body.
And that leads right into the final beat, hit. You make contact high, slightly in front of you, and you swing smoothly. And the golden rule here is a classic pickleball truth: control and placement always dictate over raw power.
Always. A controlled, fluid overhead that you place deep toward your opponent's feet or carefully drop into an open quadrant of the court will always yield a better result than a ball you try to violently obliterate out of anger that ends up smashing into the net tape.
We've all done it. Now, conceptually understanding turn, shuffle, reach, hit while listening to us is one thing. Actually executing it while a plastic ball is flying at your face in a live game is entirely different.
Practice makes perfect.
So the manual provides a practice progression to build this muscle memory, and I want to highlight the second stage of it because it is an at-home drill. I love this because it is so empowering for the listener. You don't even need a court or a partner to start mastering this.
The architecture of the practice progression is all about slowly layering complexity. You start with shadow swings without a ball just to program your brain to make that shoulder turn automatic.
Right.
But the self-toss drill you mentioned is where the real neuromuscular connection happens. You take a paddle and a ball into your driveway or living room, turn your shoulders sideways, and use your non-paddle hand to gently toss the ball up and slightly in front of your hitting shoulder.
It allows you to feel that perfect spatial relationship.
Exactly.
And then you advance it by tossing the ball slightly behind your starting position. So you toss it back, and you are forced to quickly turn, shuffle back 2 steps, get behind the ball, and execute the swing. And the text is ruthless here. It explicitly commands, do not lean backward to rescue a bad contact point. Move your feet.
That is the ultimate test of the system. If you give yourself a poor toss, or if you are tracking a deeply hit lob on a real court, you must use your feet to solve the geometric problem.
Yeah, move those feet.
You never use your spine to lean backward and salvage the shot. If you're leaning backward, you have failed the safety protocol.
And eventually, you take all of this onto a real court with a coach feeding you actual lobs, and the whole sequence crystallizes. You read the apex, call mine, turn your shoulders, shuffle behind the ball, reach with that non-tattle hand up, and hit a controlled overhead.
It is such a brilliantly cohesive system.
It really is. It completely strips away the murky, chaotic waters of defending the lob and replaces it with clean, crisp, repeatable geometry.
Read the ball, make the call, move safely, recover together. It genuinely transforms on-court panic into a manageable clinical process.
It really does. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the text, we have successfully replaced fear with a decoder ring and backpedaling with a highly tuned lateral shuffle.
And that transformation leads to a rather profound final thought for you to consider the next time you find yourself standing at the kitchen line.
What's that?
Well, if you and your partner fully commit to this manual system, if you perfect this almost robotic-like efficiency where the apex of every single lob is instantly categorized, vocally communicated, and safely neutralized with perfect mechanics,
Yeah.
will your opponent simply stop using the lob altogether?
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating implication.
By mastering this very specific, systematic, defensive sequence, do you effectively erase an entire weapon from your opponent's playbook before they even swing their paddle?
That's crazy to think about.
If they realize that lobbing the ball over your head no longer causes panic, but instead just feeds you a geometric problem that you immediately solve, they might realize the question just isn't worth asking anymore.
You don't just defend the lob, you make it strategically obsolete. That is exactly why we love unpacking these sources. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the geometry, psychology, and biomechanics of the lob. We hope you take this decoder ring onto the court. Remember to never, ever backpedal, and we will see you next time.